This is our second demo on the cloud creature construction. And we have taken our creature design, which you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner there, and we have cut them out of cloud texture. We kind of rolled out a big cloud and then used selection tools to cut out this shape. And then we use the refine edge option up here when you have a selection to soften that edge. So if we zoom in close on it, you'll see that it's not so hard. It's a little bit softened out, though it might look a little artificial in places. Okay, now comes the time when we need to use some other references. And we need to make this look more believable as a cloud. And I especially like this reference that I found, this one right here, because it shows that to make limbs appear, because this looks like a big rock creature to me, to make limbs appear, it's okay to have breaks in the form, have the sky show through. And that's what I'm going to need for the illusion of these kind of shapes. Because this looks kind of big and bulky. Its edges don't look cloud-like yet. But this just doesn't look believable yet. So, this is what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to take my reference, and I'm going to color correct it using color balance to make it match what I already have. So putting a little bit more yellow into it. We all think clouds are white, but what we don't see are all these different colors that you can identify within them until we need to match them like this. Okay, and now I need to get rid of all this background. So we get lots of practice using the magic wand and kind of selecting out the sky. We want to get rid of all of it. Remember, you can hold down Shift to add to your selection. And now I'm going to refine it, and I have remember settings on, so it will always soften it for me. This shows me a little preview of the selection. And then I'm going to delete, and the more I delete, the more it will kind of eat away at those shapes. And then Command D to deselect. I'm going to use a 100% soft eraser here. And even without augmenting this at all, it's already giving me some nice little cloud textures around my image that I might be able to work with. I just want to get rid of that little ghost edge. All right, so how can I use this? Well, I can move it around, of course. I have my little image of my creature there, so this might be a little helpful for the underside. But I am not going to do this. I am not going to rotate this because that changes the lighting completely. So you have to stay true to the lighting. Just that it's consistent throughout the cloud. So maybe right there. And now what I'm going to do is use my eraser at a very low opacity and start blending it in just lightly, especially getting rid of any kind of sky that still needs to come through. And the great thing about using this low opacity soft eraser is it not only blends the edges, it also blends the colors a little bit. And the other approach I can use is I can move this layer underneath my big layer and I can start erasing away. Just to be safe, I'll do it from a copy, but I can start erasing away from my actual image. Softening some of these edges. Allowing them to get broken up a little bit. It just needs to suggest my creature, but first it needs to suggest a believable cloud. So get a lot of practice with the brush. Oops, wrong layer. That's what your history is for, right? If you find you're erasing in the wrong place. on the wrong layer. It can happen very easily. Now the reason this assignment doesn't have a minimum requirement for the number of references I want you to use is because no matter what you do, if you are trying to make a believable cloud out of your creature, you are transforming your material. So this is starting to look better. And I want to let the sky show through in some places, especially on these feet. Okay, some other reference I can use. So I thought this could be pretty useful. You can warp clouds to a certain extent, but you want their lighting to match. So the lighting on this is coming from the opposite direction. So I'm going to transform it, control click or right click, and I'm going to flip it horizontally. Okay, now the lighting matches a little bit better, but more I want to use this just for some of these texture elements and some of these shadows. So first I have to adjust the color and maybe even the levels. Get it to kind of fit in with what my cloud is. It's a little less blue overall, especially in the shadows. And then I want to brighten it up a little bit in the midtones there and maybe limit the shadows. There we go. Now I want to get rid of those blues, the sky around it. Going to refine that. Let it even get a little bit softer. And now I'll use that eraser, again 100% opacity, but very soft and quite large to start blending it in. So this gives me a lot of cloud material to work with. I'm going to keep my eraser at 100% for everything I do in this assignment. But when I do clone stamp, I might keep that at lower opacities. And I'll show you that next. And then the other tool that we're going to use that we haven't really used before is the smudge tool. And that's going to push at the clouds as though the wind were pushing at them. And give us kind of a nice effect. But with your eraser, there's no need to be shy about it. It just slows you down. But by making it really large and really soft, I can kind of eat away in a believable way between these layers. All right, now it's time for clone stamping. I've got all this cloud stuff to use, but where do I use it and how? So I'm going to move this up somewhere, and the first thing I want to resolve is this bunch here. So I'm going to use the clone stamp, and I'm going to say current and below layer, and I'm going to make a new layer on the very top, and I might even label that clone stamp layer. I'm going to treat my brush well. I'm using the size sensitive to start, which is the ones in the middle here. For opacity sensitive with the stylus, it's going to be these two, and I'll use those later. The hardness 0, the brush fairly large, the opacity pretty low. I think 40 is a good place to start, but then it will get even lower. I'm first going to steal from these textures here. And then I'm just going to start plopping them in, changing my target whenever I need to. And I can steal from any layer this way and kind of soften my cloud. Layering organic texture on organic texture. Make sure you only put the shadows on the correct sides, right? Now, because it's on its own layer, I can always erase it away and get back to where I started. But you see, I'm doing a nice job softening these things as I go. Now this edge, I really like this edge for the side of the hand here. Make that a little bit more believable. It's still a little bit too yellow, so let me work on this reference and see if I can get rid of some of that yellow still. That helps. I think I'm going to need to go to saturation to actually take down just the overall saturation of that cloud a little bit. There we go. To about there. Okay. So now when I steal from it, it won't look so colorful compared to everything else. Remember to change your target quite a bit. And don't be afraid to erase away when you need to. This way we're just painting with the clouds. We're using them as our palette, and we're trying to get believable edges as much as possible. And we always have our shape underneath. Kind of tie everything together if we need it. Now we can also play with the opacity of the layers themselves, like that. Now that's going to help. I'm just trying to build texture, especially at the edges here. Any edges that look too sharp or unbelievable. I'm doing it all on my clone stamp layer. Remember, when you use Clone Stamp, your selection travels with you, so you have to keep changing it. As you move through. And don't be afraid to let your clouds break up a little bit. Let the sky show through. I want the appearance of these feet to feel almost like they're not there. Very faint. So a lot of blue mixed into them. All right, so it doesn't suggest my creature so much right now because I have more than I need in shapes, but I am getting kind of believable cloud shapes everywhere. And now I'm going to start kind of pruning it and refining it to really fit my creature's design. And there's some parts I like a lot, like this back edge, I'm liking that.